I was sitting in the car outside the school when my phone lit up, and in one blink, my entire marriage ended. Moving to Hawaii with Andrew, I emptied our savings. Good luck with the mortgage. That was it. 14 years of trust, gone in a single text message. My fingers tightened around the steering wheel, and for a second the world went quiet, like everything around me had paused but me. I could see my boy running out of the building, waving his little art project like nothing in the world could go wrong. And in that moment, I made a choice. I wouldn't cry. I wouldn't beg. I would let her believe she had won. Because the thing about silence is it's not weakness. It's a trap she'd already stepped into. She just didn't know it yet. Well now, hello there friend, I'm glad you're here with me tonight. You know, life has a way of testing just how strong a quiet heart can be. I've carried a lot of stories in these old bones, but this one carved its way into me deep. Before I begin, let me ask you something. Has anyone ever dismissed you because of your age? Tell me down in the comments. I read every word. From the outside, we look like a picture-perfect little family. There was me, the quiet father who worked long hours but never missed a school pickup. My wife, the woman with the easy smile and a way of lighting up a room. And our boy, 8 years old. Still at that age where his drawings were always of the three of us standing under a big yellow sun. Her parents loved to remind everyone that we were the steady ones, the couple who had it figured out. They'd host barbecues in their backyard, showing us off like we were a postcard family. The neighbors would wave when she watered the lawn. I'd mow on Saturdays. People saw us and said things like, "You two are rock solid." But under all that calm, something cold had been growing. I'd catch her phone lighting up at midnight, her smile soft but not meant for me. Her in-laws never saw the shift, never felt the distance between her laughter and her eyes. She became a stranger standing in our kitchen, laughing at jokes I wasn't part of anymore. Our boy didn't see it. He still hugged her tight, still believed bedtime stories were real. But I felt the house changing. Softly, quietly, like the air before a storm. To everyone else, we were a happy family. But behind closed doors, love was unraveling, one silent thread at a time. There was a time when every corner of this house held a memory I was proud of. I still remember the day we got the keys. It wasn't much then, just a worn-down two-bedroom with peeling paint and a stubborn front door that squeaked every time you opened it. But to me, it was a promise. A place where our family would grow. I worked 2 jobs to make it happen. Early mornings at the mill, late nights fixing engines in a drafty old garage. I'd come home smelling like grease and iron, and she'd meet me on the porch with a smile that made every ache worth it. We built everything here. Our garden, the porch swing, even the little playhouse out back for our boy. Every nail in these walls carries my fingerprints. There's a photo of us hanging in the hallway. She's got her arms around me, and I'm covered in drywall dust. I just finished renovating the kitchen we couldn't afford to hire someone for. That picture used to make me feel proud. Now it feels like a photograph of a stranger standing beside me. I sold my truck once so we could make the down payment on this place. She cried that night, saying she'd never forget the sacrifice. But time has a way of testing promises. This house, this porch, this swing, it all became my anchor. And when her message came through, standing right here, it felt like she wasn't just leaving me. She was walking away from everything I built with my hands, everything I gave. It started small, like most things do. We were at the dinner table one night, the 3 of us. My son was proudly showing her the little clay project he'd made at Aftercare, talking a mile a minute. She smiled at him, but her eyes slid over to me. Then she laughed, soft, quiet, but sharp. She said, "You wouldn't understand. You've never really been good at helping with his school stuff." She said it like a joke, but it wasn't a joke. Not to me. My son looked down at his plate, and I saw the flicker in his eyes. Confusion, embarrassment. I forced a small smile, the kind you give when you're trying to protect a child from something ugly. Inside, though, it landed like a nail in my chest. I'd worked so hard to keep us together. I was the one who showed up every afternoon, rain or shine. I packed lunches, I fixed the broken bike, I made the damn house payments. And yet, in one line, she made it sound like I was just taking up space at that table. I didn't say anything. I swallowed it. But that moment stayed with me. Words like that don't just fade. They settle somewhere deep, waiting for the day they finally make sense. And when her text came, those words rang in my head like a warning I had ignored. Little cracks started showing up in places no one else could see. At first, it was the way she'd talk over me at family dinners, sliding in little remarks wrapped in sugar. One night, her father made a toast about the house, how proud he was that his daughter finally lived in a place that wasn't falling apart. She didn't correct him. She laughed, leaned in, and said, "Well, I've always had good taste." Not a single word about the years I spent paying it off. Not a mention of the nights I came home with hands so raw I couldn't hold a fork. I sat there smiling, listening to the room laugh, swallowing the truth like a stone. Then came the money. She started insisting we refinance the house, said we should put it to better use, and live a little. But it wasn't we she was talking about. It was her. Trips with friends, new clothes, late-night business dinners that always ended with silence when I asked who she was with. The trust we built over the years began to feel like a glass floor under my feet. She pushed boundaries a little more each time, coming home later, forgetting the small promises she used to keep, treating my questions like an inconvenience. And through it all, I stayed quiet. Not because I was weak, but because I needed her to believe I was still blind. I let her think she was winning. She mistook my silence for surrender. She didn't see it for what it really was, patience. And patience, in the right hands, can be the sharpest weapon of all. It wasn't one big moment that told me something was wrong. It was the small, quiet things that started piling up like dead leaves on a porch. Late at night, I'd hear her whispering in the kitchen. At first, I thought it was work calls. But the way she lowered her voice when she heard my footsteps told me otherwise. When I'd step closer, she'd click her phone screen off like a thief shutting a drawer. "It's just nothing," she'd say. But nothing doesn't make your hands shake. Then came the little gaps in our accounts. Transfers I didn't recognize. She always had a reason ready, something about bills, something about a gift, something that made me sound foolish for asking. "You're overthinking everything," she'd say with that tired sigh, the one that makes a man feel small for simply paying attention. I found a stack of papers once, tucked behind the cleaning supplies under the sink. Loan applications. Her signature. My name scribbled in the margins like an afterthought. She hadn't submitted them yet, but it was enough to send a cold ripple through me. Even her perfume started changing. Little details, things only someone who truly watches would catch. It smelled like a hotel lobby. Clean, distant, not from here. I'd lie awake at night listening to the silence between us, the kind that hums with things unsaid. That's when the gut feeling stopped being a whisper and turned into a steady pulse beneath my ribs. Something was moving behind my back, and deep down, I already knew. I was going to find proof. I just didn't know how deep the cut would go. The proof didn't come crashing down. It slipped into my hands quiet, almost polite, like betrayal often does. It was a Wednesday. She thought I was working late, but the shop had closed early after a power cut. I came home just as the sun was going down, that soft, golden light spilling through the living room window. And that's when I heard her voice. Not in the kitchen, not on the phone. In our living room. On a video call. She was sitting on the couch with her laptop, laughing softly, that same laugh she used to save for me. But it wasn't for me anymore. I leaned against the hallway wall and listened. "When I get there, it'll all be ours," she said. "He's too predictable. He won't see it coming." She didn't say my name, but she didn't have to. I'd lived with that voice long enough to know every tone it carried. After she left the room, I walked in like nothing happened. The call was still open. I didn't touch a thing. I just watched the screen long enough to catch a glimpse of his face, Andrew. The same man she swore was just a friend. I quietly opened my phone, hit record, and captured everything. Later that night, when the house was still, I searched the drawer in the study she thought I never opened. There it was, a printed itinerary, flights to Hawaii, her name and his name, one way. I sat there under that soft lamplight, holding the proof like a cold stone in my palm. I didn't confront her. I didn't shout. I folded everything back exactly as I found it. Because sometimes, silence isn't fear, it's preparation. She thought I was in the dark. She had no idea I'd just lit the first match. Now let me ask you something, and be honest with yourself. If you walked into your own living room and heard the person you built your life with plotting a future with someone else, what would you have done? Would you have stormed in and confronted them on the spot? Or would you have stayed silent, let them believe they were winning, and waited for the right moment to strike? Tell me down in the comments. I want to know how you'd handle a betrayal like this. It happened on a Sunday night, the kind of night that usually smells like roast chicken and quiet routines. Her parents were over for dinner, and she was playing the perfect wife. But something in her eyes that evening felt different. Too sharp, too rehearsed. Halfway through the meal, her father raised a glass, talking about how proud he was of her, how she'd brought stability into my life. She let him finish, then leaned back and said, "Well, it won't stay stable if certain people don't start making smarter decisions." She didn't look at anyone else when she said it. Just me. The room went quiet. She smiled sweetly, cutting into her chicken as if nothing had happened. Her mother cleared her throat, trying to change the subject, but the damage was done. She wasn't just hinting anymore. She was testing how far she could push. Then she brought up the house. "If you'd just agree to refinance," she said in front of everyone, "maybe we wouldn't be stuck in the same little life forever." I could feel her father watching me, waiting for me to argue, waiting for me to lose my temper. But I didn't. I set my fork down, wiped my hands on the napkin, and just stared at my plate like nothing in the world could shake me. She wanted me to crack. She wanted to make me look small in front of them, to corner me in my own home. But instead, I gave her nothing. No outburst. No defense. Just silence, so thick the room couldn't breathe. And that silence, I knew, unsettled her more than anything I could have said, because she didn't know it yet. But by that point, the ground beneath her feet was already shifting. I waited until she felt sure she had me cornered before I let the first crack show. It was 2 nights after that dinner. She came into the kitchen, leaning on the counter with that smug little tilt in her head, the same one she wore whenever she thought she had the upper hand. She said, "You're not going to make this house your retirement nest. If you can't keep up, I'll just start over somewhere else, maybe with someone who actually has ambition." Her voice was steady. She believed every word she said. I didn't answer right away. I just set my coffee cup down on the table, slowly, quietly. Then I looked up at her and said, "You sure about that?" Her eyes narrowed, just a flicker of unease breaking through her confidence. I reached into the drawer by the fridge and pulled out a plain white envelope. I didn't hand it to her. I didn't even open it. I just placed it on the table between us. She stared at it like it was ticking. "What's that?" she asked. I smiled, not the kind of smile you give out of kindness, but the kind you give when you've stopped being afraid. "Just a few things I've been keeping safe," I said quietly. She stepped closer, trying to read the label, trying to measure how much I knew. Her voice got smaller, sharper. "What did you do?" I didn't answer. I took the envelope back, slipped it into my jacket pocket, and stood. No raised voice, no speech, just enough truth to make her doubt herself for the first time. That was the moment the power started to shift. Not because I exposed everything, but because she finally realized I wasn't standing in the dark. I'd been watching. And I wasn't going to be the fool she'd counted on. I waited until the day she thought she'd finally won. It was the morning after her flight. She didn't know I already knew the itinerary, the one-way ticket with Andrew's name printed right beside hers. I watched the clock like a man waiting for a storm he's already boarded the windows for. At 6:32 a.m., my phone buzzed. A single notification, the joint account. She'd drained it overnight, or so she thought. I leaned back in my chair, let the quiet stretch around me, and pictured her face the moment she'd land and check the balance. But the real twist came later that afternoon. My lawyer and I sat in his office with a folder on the desk. Inside it was everything. The secret recording of her call, the flight details, the bank transfers, and the trust fund papers she never knew existed. Months of quiet, patient preparation sealed in black ink. She called me just after she landed. At first, it was light, mocking, like she was calling from paradise. Then I heard the panic. "Where's the money? What did you do?" she snapped. Her voice cracked. For the first time, she sounded small. I didn't yell. I didn't even answer right away. I just said, You should have read the fine print. While she was boarding planes, I was securing the house, locking the trust fund, and filing for custody. Everything she thought she'd stolen was already gone from her reach. And the best part? She signed away her rights to the property months ago without ever realizing it, because she never cared to read the documents she pretended to understand. When her lawyer finally called mine, the voice on the other end went flat. She had nothing. No savings, no house, no claim. Her greed had dug the hole, and all I had to do was let her fall into it. And just like that, the woman who thought she held the match realized I'd built the fireproof wall long before she struck it. The day everything unraveled for her wasn't loud. It wasn't chaotic. It was quiet. The kind of quiet that cuts through a person like a blade they never saw coming. We met at the lawyer's office 2 weeks after she landed back in the country. She walked in wearing a bright sundress, still trying to carry that air of control she'd worn for years. But I saw the twitch in her jaw, the way her fingers fidgeted with the strap of her bag. She already knew this wouldn't end the way she imagined. The lawyer slid the folder across the table. Inside was everything. The recording of her promises to Andrew, the transfer receipts showing the trust fund she couldn't touch, and the signed clause she'd skipped over months ago when she was too busy planning her escape to actually read. She didn't speak at first, just stared. Her face went pale, like all the color had drained out of her. Her lips parted, but no words came out. And then it hit her, all at once. You can't do this," she finally whispered. But I didn't raise my voice. I just leaned forward, steady, and said, "You already did it to yourself." The room went dead silent. Her lawyer shuffled the papers, cleared his throat, and quietly explained what she'd signed, what she no longer had any right to. It was over, and everyone knew it. There was no shouting, no gloating, no screaming match, just the sound of reality sinking in. She wanted a war, but I'd given her a mirror. And in it, she finally saw what she'd become. When I stood and walked out, she didn't follow. She just sat there in that expensive dress, clutching a bag full of nothing. That silence was justice enough. You know, people think betrayal comes like thunder, loud and sudden, but most times it starts as a whisper, a small crack in trust, a quiet shift in the way someone looks at you. And if you're not careful, you'll let it break you before you even see it coming. But I learned something. Silence isn't weakness. It's power when you know how to use it. Patience can build walls stronger than any lie, and truth doesn't need to shout to be heard. If someone ever betrays you, remember this: you don't have to match their noise. Sometimes the calmest hand on the table holds the winning card. Thank you for staying with me through this. These stories aren't easy to tell, but they're real in the way pain can shape a man into something unshakable. If you've ever been betrayed, you know, it's not the moment they leave that changes you. It's the moment you choose not to fall apart. I'd love to hear from you. What would you have done in my shoes? Would you have stayed quiet like I did? Or confronted the storm head-on? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read them all. If this story reached something in you, make sure to subscribe, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and check the channel for more stories like this one. And remember, stay strong, stay wise, stay blessed.